Next up is the Oklahoma Sooners right now, who took a major step forward in 2023 under Brent Venables and another major step back in 2024. 2023, they had a 10-3 record that year. He got a big contract extension for that. Came crashing back down to earth with a 6-7 record this past year. In fact, it's the second time they've had a 6-7 record in the last 3 years under Brent Venables. For reference, the Sooners had not had a losing campaign since in the 21st century before he took over. So the entire 21st century before Brent Venables, they had not had a losing season. They've now had 2 in his 3 years as the head coach. Now, he's a defensive guy, right? Former Clemson defensive coordinator. They've had a pretty good defense under him. The issue is the offense has not been very good at all. They had a ton of injuries on that offense in the receiving core and in that offensive line. The lowest offensive grade in the Power 4 last year with a 60.2 offensive grade. Now, I mentioned before, the defense that got them bowl eligible. They had the 12th best defensive grade in the country with a 91.4 grade as a unit. And Dalton, they have a really strong defense once again in 2025. And also they added a quarterback in John Mateer, a lot of people were excited about, and Jaydn Ott, a running back who's a top 15 running back in the country. But there's still some serious concerns on that side of the ball. But once again, Oklahoma should have a really good defense.
It's Brent Venables, right? I mean, that's exactly what you would expect. They're losing a couple of the leaders, but you look at their D-line with R. Mason Thomas, with Gracen Halton, guys like that. You look at their secondary. You know I love Eli Bowen. Man, that kid is a true freshman. Last year was great. You have Peyton Bowen also. You have, there's another safety. I'm now blanking on his name because he's Robert Spears Jennings. That's it. They just have a complete defensive unit, 12th highest ranked defense, graded defense, I should say, in the country last season. And it's just their offense didn't give them any sort of help, right? So they're trying to get in these grinded out defensive games. But I think this team, when you look at their strength, it's a reflection of their head coach. It's what Brent Venables always had at Clemson, was elite defense. He's going to have that now. It's just a matter of if they can score enough points. The game I go back to is that early season game against Tennessee, where they lose 19-10 or something like that. I mean, you just can't. You have to find a way to help your defense when they're playing that well against elite offenses.
Yeah, the biggest question is, once again, will they have a competent passing game in 2025? A 55.5 offensive grade on passing plays last year, the worst in the Power 4 and tied for the 4th worst in the entire country. Their struggling offensive line remains pretty much the same from last year, and their leading returning receiver was Deion Burks. He had 238 yards last year in only 5 games. And of course, Deion Burks is a much better player than that, and now is a fully healthy player. Should be a lot better in 2025, but still, he's your leading returning receiver from last year, and he had less than 250 yards last year. Now, John Mateer is in a quarterback, right? A lot of people are excited about him. He's a better runner than he is a passer, though, right now. He only had a 70.8 passing grade at Washington State last year, and it's worth mentioning Washington State was basically playing a Mountain West schedule last year. So going up to the SEC now, how will he look as a passer at Oklahoma? That is a question mark. Despite it being a really good runner, you talk about in just a second, Dalton, he's a great runner, maybe the best runner we have at quarterback in college football, but there's still some issues with him as a passer you get into right now.
Yeah, this feels like a lightning rod, doesn't it? Like whichever way we go about this, we won't ruffle any feathers at all. But let's go with what we saw from Mateer. Now, you mentioned the 70 passing grade. The last 3 or 4 games of last year, he really turned that on. He got hot down the stretch at the end of the season. But the first thing you notice about Mateer, plays at a fast pace. He's a playmaker, okay? Tied for the most missed tackles forced. 54 missed tackles forced, most among quarterbacks last season, okay? So there's that. Over 1,000 yards rushing when he gets to scrambling outside the pocket on pass plays. He's really an electric runner. I don't care what level of football he's playing at. You can see that he's a darn good athlete. The question is going to be, as a passer, there's 2 things about the athleticism. One, he allowed, so we at PFF, we keep track of when a quarterback is responsible, when he's holding the ball too long or when he runs into pressure. 33.7% of the pressure he faced, he was held at least partially responsible for.
Somewhere third.
Second highest rate in the country. Okay, so you're talking about a guy who holds the ball too long, sometimes likes to play sandlot football a little bit more than he should. Now, is he really good at it? Sure. The other thing, too, is his footwork can be kind of antsy as he wants to move and he throws from this kind of lower 3/4 delivery. Accuracy is not great. 52.5% of his passes charted as accurate for our quarterback charting. 100th out of 123 quarterbacks with 200 pass attempts. So it's kind of frenetic. He's a dynamic athlete. He's a really good runner. And I got to think Oklahoma's a little bit inspired to play the way they did against Alabama last year when Jackson Arnold was running all over Alabama. I go, okay, it's in there. The quarterback run game, especially with the next guy you're about to talk about paired in there with them. This could be a dynamic run game, but Mateer, he's going to have to get used to the SEC speed of play, understand when to take his shots, and then again, don't play sandlot football too often. He can throw. He throws a nice ball. He can rip the deep ball downfield.
Different
especially
arm angles too, like sidearm.
Different arm angles. When he throws it on time, he can work it vertically. It's just a matter of not trying to play hero ball all the time, and that's the part I'd be worried about. Again, with maybe the offensive line questions and the supporting cast questions that we still kind of have about Oklahoma.
Yeah, definitely. But what Oklahoma should have is a really good read option game if you want to run that kind of offense, because John Mateer may be the best runner at quarterback in the country, and Jaydn Ott is a top 15 running back in the country too. Last year he was our number 4 running back in college football. Disappointing junior year though, only had 385 rushing yards at Cal. Now, most of that was due to a nagging ankle injury that he had all of last year, and also California's offensive line was a disaster with the 20th worst run blocking grade in college football with a 54.1 mark. He was still our honorable mention in our top 10 running backs list. Of course, you could watch that video if you want to watch it too, because of his dominance over his first 2 years at California. Across 2022 and 2023, 108 forced missed tackles were the 6th most among all Power 4 tailbacks, 1,394 yards after contact, 7th most among Power 4 running backs, and 517 receiving yards, 6th most among Power 4 running backs. So Jaydn Ott, with a fully healthy season and a quarterback who could really run in John Mateer, he could all of a sudden reemerge as a top 5, top 10 running back in the country like we thought he was before the injuries kind of robbed him last year.
No, there's an idea here with this Oklahoma offense, and I think it might even be Brent Venables' idea himself, is look, ball control, let's be the more physical team. Let me coach my elite defense because I'm going to have it. I got a boatload of talent on this side. But we went and got John Mateer, who obviously was one of the most sought-after names at quarterback in the portal this year. And then when Jaydn Ott came free in the spring, that's big because we got to remember, that's a recent thing. Jaydn Ott he's the newest guy to the Oklahoma program. But what he showed you 2 years ago, you all of a sudden think about what could be a dynamic running game for Oklahoma. They got to complement it with the passing game. But if you have 2 rushing threats like this playing at the top of their game, you got a real problem back there in the backfield.
They're going to play smash mouth football for sure with that running game and with that elite defense next year. And Dalton, who should be one of the top defenders next year?
So many guys we could talk about. Let's go on the interior. I feel like we've had a good amount of defensive tackles today. We're going to keep that going. How about Gracen Halton? Look, playing a little over 400 snaps last year in a kind of a deep rotation, that Oklahoma defensive line, but 13.6% pressure rate over the last 2 years. Really good number for an interior defender, right? So you're talking about a guy who 6'2", 290, a little bit quicker, got the athleticism inside, gives you, some guys are those stout run stoppers, not Gracen Halton. He's going to be rushing the passer from the inside, while our Mason Thomas has an explosive first step off the edge. This pass rush is a real problem, right? So when you talk about this front 7 for Oklahoma, they're not the issue. They had a young secondary last year, had some lapses in coverage, but they were the 12th best defense in the country last year for our grading because of the front 7, and a big reason for it was Gracen Halton on the inside.
The highest pressure rate among returning FBS D tackles, highest pass rush win rate among returning Power 4 D tackles. He's a top 10 D tackle in my country, in my opinion, in college football right now. All right, Dalton, over-under time and bottom line time now for the Sooners. Right now, the over-under is set at 6.5. Do you think they're going to go over or under that win total? Really, will they have a winning season with Brent Venables next year? And ultimately, what is the bottom line for Oklahoma football?
The bottom line is Brent Venables really needs to have a good year.
They can't afford another losing season. I know they gave him a huge extension, so I don't think they'll fire him after a bad year.
And the win totals. I wish I could wait to answer this question until after week 2 when they play Michigan.
Literally just gonna say that's a huge game for both.
Oklahoma,
programs.
Michigan. It might be
similar.
It might be the best game of week 2. Man, I wish I could answer that after. And then they play their first SEC game is Auburn, and I think both of these teams are in very similar standing where it's. All right, you have talent. Are you going to win with that talent? The difference is Auburn's schedule is a lot easier than Oklahoma. The hard part is they found a way to go 6-6 with that team they had last year. This is the hard part, Or I guess they didn't get over the 6.5, though. I guess that's the question. Are they better than last year?
I don't know.
That's the hard part.
The offense has to be better. You can't get worse.
With Mateer and Ott, you would think.
It can't be worse. No, is the defense as good as it was last year, though?
But if they go out there and lose week 2 to a really young Michigan team at home, they're not hitting it. Have you seen this SEC schedule?
I know.
I'm
going under. I hate doing it, but I'm going under. I like the ground game they have there. I still have questions at the receiving core. I still have questions on the offensive line. I still have questions with Mateer as a passer. You lose Danny Stutzman, your heart and soul of your entire program. I'm going under. I hate doing it.
They're going to win. They got 3 wins out of conference. Are they going 4-5 otherwise?
Think about it. They needed an upset over Alabama to even make a bowl game last year too. That came out of nowhere. That game. I don't know.
You're killing me. But I guess Ole Miss, South Carolina, Tennessee. This might be the hardest one.
This is really hard.
This
is really hard.
I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna go with they went 6-6 last year, and they should be better. I don't know that
it can't get worse.
I don't think it's a huge step better.
No,
7 or 8. I'll go. I'm so in between.
It's quite literally the worst offense in the Power 4 last year, so it's hard to get worse. And I think they improved it. I will say. I think they now healthy Deion Burks, Mateer, Ott.
I'll take them to find their way to get to 7 or 8. But if they go out there and lose to Michigan at home in week 2 to maybe a true freshman quarterback,
at home too,
that might be a death knell to that. I'm gonna go over. I don't. Some people think they're a playoff contender. I don't think so on this schedule with their offensive questions. I'll take the over. This is a big fence one. I'll take it. I'll go. I'll take a 7 or 8 win Oklahoma team. Maybe 7.
I'm going under. Listen, they should have a smash mouth brand of football once again with that run game, with that defense. But I need serious improvement from that offensive line and in that passing game. They want to make any sort of noise in the SEC like they should be.
And we are going to know early. These 2 games that they have early against Michigan and Auburn.
Yeah.
Whoa, we're going to find out a lot.
Not only huge games for Oklahoma, huge games for Michigan and Auburn,
for
too.
all of them, all those teams. I mean, just the number of huge early season games for a couple of these teams in this conference is ridiculous.
Yeah. All right, I'm going under for Oklahoma. Storied program at Oklahoma, unfortunately, is going to have another 6-win season probably or somewhere, at least in my opinion, going into next year.